Eerie calls come across the sky-blue waters of a northern lake, a sign of spring. This loon has arrived early and is already on its nest, which might be located on any wilderness lake in the northern United States or across Canada. Exquisite coloration makes North America's largest diving bird also one of its most beautiful birds. Later arrivals and younger pairs are still actively courting and establishing territories. Not only the loons are courting, these blue-winged teal vie for the attentions of this female. A marsh wren and a blackbird add to the spring chorus. A spring peeper and a chorus frog call for mates. The loon's courtship continues with head rubbing and simultaneous diving. It takes a bit of searching to select a nest site. In fact, they try several sites within their nesting territory. Returning pairs often utilize the previous year's successful sites. A blue heron watches. Finally, the loons have chosen a suitable place and begin building the soggy platform that will support their eggs. Sharing the task, male and female work to pull together and arrange nesting materials. These turtles seem to take life much easier. Many animals share the loon's territory. A muskrat enjoys new spring growth, and Canada geese are already starting incubation. The loons work several days on the nest, also using it as a platform for mating. Soon the eggs will be laid. Incubation takes about 4 weeks and is shared by both parents. So periodically, a nest exchange occurs. The incubating loon leaves the nest when the mate arrives. They linger briefly near the nest, a behavior that perhaps reinforces their pair bond. To feed, the loon heads for open water where it won't attract attention to the nest. Meanwhile, a new vigil begins with turning the eggs. Because a loon's legs are attached far back on its body, walking on land is nearly impossible. Therefore, they always nest very near water. A dragonfly has a new perch. The annoyance is gone, but the question remains of what to do with the dragonfly now. Nearby, the geese are taking their goslings ashore for the night. This will be a safer place from the storm that is gathering overhead. Rain starts in the evening and continues heavily throughout the night. It has stopped by morning, and a mallard brings her ducklings out to feed. The heavy rains and rising water damage the beaver's dam. Rising water is also a problem for the nesting loon. Both parents are at the nest area. Surrounded by water, their nest is built on a mass of vegetation and mud anchored to the bottom. Rising water could flood the nest and destroy the eggs. The loons react to this by building the egg platform higher. Again, they work as a team, just as they did in building the nest. While the loon is a very old species with many primitive features, it has continued to survive. This behavior of building up the nest to prevent loss of the eggs is one of the many adaptations that may have kept it from extinction. Finally satisfied they have passed the danger point, incubation continues as usual. Not all loons have a nest surrounded by water. Some nest on shorelines. These nests are located right at the water's edge, since a loon can't walk well on land. Some animals, such as this skunk, are possible predators on these nests. This time it has found a nest of snapping turtle eggs and is making a meal of them. The loon remains quiet, and the skunk heads off without finding the loon's nest. Waiting is nearly over. An egg has hatched. The second pipped egg will soon follow. After several hours, the fluffy black chick is ready to leave the nest and take up life on water. Later, the second chick is out, and it too abandons the nest. Chicks stick close to their parents, often riding on their back when tired or perhaps cold. They will do this until they are about 3 weeks old. For the first couple of days, the chick spends most of its time on the surface. When it dives, its downy body tends to float right back to the top. But it quickly develops the expert diving ability characteristic of its species. Rear-positioned legs are now of great advantage to move it along. The parent stays close to the chick, watching it underwater, and often joining the dive into the murky depths. It uses its wings to help propel itself. They are truly master divers. The protective parent watches for underwater predators, such as turtles or large fish, like this northern pike. A small chick would make a meal for the pike. The chick heads for the surface. At last, safety at the parent's side. That pike will have to find something else for food today. Meanwhile, the other parent dives after the fish. The pursuing loon discourages the pike. Danger is past, and the loon family is back together again. Spring moves into summer around the loon's territory. Weather is warm and food is abundant. It's a time for easy living and growing. Mallard ducklings have grown too. They'll soon leave their mother and live on their own. Unlike the ducklings, loon chicks stay with their parents for a longer time, keeping them busy with their increasing demands for more food. Food consists mainly of small fish and often crayfish. Having spotted the crayfish, it is an easy matter to catch it before it escapes. Young loons start catching some of their own food when they're about a week or two old. However, for 6 to 8 weeks, they still depend on their parents to catch additional food for them. Late summer finds the goslings nearly full grown and looking very much like their parents. Around the lake, geese practice flying. Soon the migrations begin. Large flocks of geese gather and fly south. Some loons migrate early too, but the juveniles often stay behind for a while longer, feeding, resting, and growing. Green gives way to autumn's brilliant hues, a reminder of the lateness of the season. Soon cold weather will bring ice to the lakes. The last of the young loons must leave before ice freezes it in. A loon is a heavy-bodied bird with short wings, not an easy, graceful flyer. It must have a large open body of water for takeoff, or it cannot get airborne. Once in the air, it flies fast and direct to ocean areas around the coasts of the United States. Their eerie calls won't be heard again over these northern lakes until spring. Because many lakes are becoming more crowded with people and cottages, there are fewer nesting areas and more human disturbances. Conservationists are concerned for the future of the loon. With a shortage of good nesting areas, one effort is to build nesting platforms. Made of logs, wire, and vegetation, they will be anchored in the lakes. First, they find a suitable lake, one where previous nests have failed, but where a potential breeding pair is frequently seen. There, they tow the platform into place. The Audubon Society of New Hampshire has undertaken this project to improve the nesting success of the loon. They study the lakes and the loon's habits. Then they place nest platforms in areas where the birds will likely use them. Surrounded by water, the platform nests are much safer from predators than the shorelines. Raccoons are not as likely to swim in deep water to reach a nesting platform or island nest. Platforms are placed in more remote parts of the lake, preferably away from cottages. The project is proving successful. Loons frequently use the floating platforms. Still another problem faces the loon, the growing use of wilderness lakes by recreationists. Increased activities by people cause serious disturbances to nesting birds. These displays of rushing and penguin-like dancing are interesting and exciting to watch, but they are actually displays of distress because the loon feels its nest is threatened. The unknowing skier rushes on, but a nest has been disturbed. Often a gull may raid the nest while the parents are not incubating. Many people meaning no harm try to approach nests too closely to photograph, study, or just look. This behavior is perhaps a mixed reaction of wanting to flee, and yet an instinct to stay and protect the nest. Too many disturbances may cause the loons to abandon their nests as these have done. Biologists and volunteers continue checking the platforms regularly. This one was abandoned because of too much human disturbance. They will try to improve this situation and get the birds to re-nest. First, a sign will inform people of the nesting territory and warn them to stay away during the nesting time. This program is working in New Hampshire, and it will work other places too. They gather fresh vegetation to renew the abandoned nesting platform. It is a big undertaking to work the many lakes in this area. But the efforts are already paying off, with increased numbers of loon chicks being fledged. Fortunately, this loon has not left its nesting territory. Now the bay is posted for the remainder of the nesting season. They collect the abandoned cold eggs from the nest and will have them tested to see if they were fertile or have any accumulations of pesticides in them. Hopefully, the plants will attract the loons to the platform again. Since it is still early in the nesting season, the chances are good they'll re-nest. The work for the staff and volunteers is far from complete, with many more nests to check. The eggs sound okay, so they were probably fertile, but the laboratory will make the final check. The next job is further informing residents around the lakes about the loons and the locations of their nests. Many dedicated volunteers of the Loon Preservation Committee have made hundreds of calls, distributing literature about the loon and its needs. People are willing to help with the preservation program once they are informed of the problems. Fishermen are asked to keep their distance from nests. Owners of lakeside property are asked to read about the loons and report any harassment of the birds. Newly informed people become part of a protective force as they feel a responsibility for the loons near their property. Another serious problem still threatens the loon's survival. It hangs ominously over people as well as wildlife. Sulfurous gases go skyward and fall back to earth as acid rain. It turns the lakes acid, killing many things that live there. It kills fish that are a source of recreation and food for people. It kills fish and other water animals that are the main food supply of the loons. The loon's future lies much in our hands. A loon's legacy must include people who understand the loon's needs for undisturbed nesting sites and areas to raise their young peacefully. Our legacy and theirs must include acid-free lakes with food in abundance for the chicks. We can all survive together.